Welcome to the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell. The Wellness Enclave will explore emotional health and its impact on everyday life. In the Enclave, we will address how emotional health is connected to other parts of your life, such as physical health, relationships, spirituality, and even decision-making. Our goal in the Wellness Enclave is to help you become a healthier, happier you through motivation, education, and innovation. And now, the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell, where emotional health and wellness is our top priority. Today, we will be celebrating Father's Day. I will be talking to a friend of mine who is a single father. We will be right back after this commercial break.
There's a man at my house, he's so big and strong. He goes to work each day and he stays all day long. He comes home each night looking tired and beat. He sits down at the dinner table and has a bite to eat. Never a frown, always a smile. When he says to me, "How's my child?" I said that I've been studying hard all day in school, trying very hard to understand the golden rule. I think I'll color this man father. Color him father. I think I'll color him love. Color him love. Said I'm gonna color him father. Color him father. I think I'll color the man love. Yes, I will. Color him father. He says education is the thing if you want to compete, because without it, son, life ain't very sweet. I love this man and I don't know why, except I'll need his strength until the day that I die. My mother loves him and I can tell by the way she looks at him when he holds my little sister Nell. I heard her say just the other day that if it hadn't have been for him, she couldn't have found her way. I think I'll color him father. Color him father. I'm gonna color him love. Color him love. I've got to color him father. Color him father. I think I'll color this man love. Color him love. Our real old man, he got killed in the war, and she knows she and 7 kids couldn't have gotten very far. She says she thought that she could never love again. And then there he stood with that big wide grin. He married my mother and he took us in. And now we belong to the man with that big wide grin. I've got to color this man father. Color him father. I'm gonna color him love.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell, where we are celebrating fathers. I have a good friend of mine on the phone, Mr. Tony Groves, this morning. How are you, Mr. Groves?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I am glad you took the time out to call in. I know you're a very busy man, so I very much appreciate it, Mr. Tony. Okay. So I wanted to celebrate fathers. We celebrated mothers for our Mother's Day show, and as I stated to the audience for the Mother's Day show, I know it's a few days early because it's the Wednesday before Father's Day, but I think it's only right that we celebrate you guys. Sometimes I think men get a bad rap, so that's kind of why I wanted a live guest on, just to discuss like what it means to you to be a dad, some of the difficulties you may be having, and just people understanding that you're co-parenting right now. You have your daughter a large portion of the time, or at very minimum 50% of the time. So I want people to understand what dads are doing, as well as for people to understand that there are good men out there who are also good fathers. So again, thank you for calling in. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what does fatherhood mean to you? However you want to define it, roles, responsibilities, just what does that mean to you?
When I think about fatherhood, I think about what I want to provide to my child. And out of those few things, that kind of begins to shape what fatherhood means to me as a father. I always want to be able to protect my child. I want to be able to provide for her. I want to nurture her. I want to teach, guide, counsel her, push her when I need to. And as a parent, I think sometimes, we're also required to save our kids, even from themselves, right? Sometimes. So, so yeah, all of those things are, what it means to be a father.
So, and that's very interesting, and I think that's a good definition. So you gave us a lot of information or a lot of components to go on. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, you've been knowing me for a while, so I'm inquisitive. So I'm gonna
right.
So when you say protect, what does that mean to you when you say I want to protect? Like explain that to me. Give me some examples of that.
Well, when I think about protection, I think about safety, right? And I think safety is one of the basic core things that we as people need to even survive in this world. So for me, protection would be just making her, feel safe.
Okay.
Or protecting her from certain things in the world. We can't protect our kids from everything, but I think educating them provides a form of protection.
Right.
So we equip them with information, examples, placing them in situations where they can see the world from a certain perspective. And in doing so, we are able to provide a level of protection, even when we're not with our kids. That's one of the things that I think about a lot. I can't protect her because she's not with me all the time. She goes to school, she's with her mom, she's on field trips, things of that nature. So I can't be there. So a way for me to protect her is to, arm her and educate her.
Right. And how do you decide? And I know all children, each child is an individual. But when you say, you use the term push her as well. So how do you determine what the limits are in terms of how far you can push her? How do you determine what she needs to be pushed in or guided in? I will say guided aggressively in. How do you make those determinations?
I think the best way to do that is we have to listen to our children. They're people too. They want to be respected. I grew up in an era where kids are seen and not heard, and that's not really always applicable. We have to definitely listen to our kids. So in listening to our kids, we get to really know them. We have to empathize with them. And knowing her personality type, I know when she's really serious about something or if something is kind of out of her comfort zone, maybe she can do it.
Right.
And just it has to be a very open dialogue of conversation between you and your child in order to do that. It's not an exact science, but I think that positions you to push your child when needed.
Now, did you have a role model to be the type of father that you wanted to be? Did you have a role model, or did you have a role model at all? Like, what was your experience? What did you see when you were growing up?
My role model would have, if anyone else, I've told this to my dad, hands down. He grew up in a very difficult era. He grew up in, during segregation. So things were very, very tough for him as a kid. He didn't really have a father figure. He was raised by his grandparents. And he lived with them the majority of his childhood, so his life was very different. So, he parented in a way that was not necessarily connected to. He was a great father, but he didn't have a lot of emotional depth because that's just not. Wasn't how he was raised. So I learned a lot from him, but as I grew older, I went on sort of my own journey to kind of discover what it means to be a good dad, a great father, and a lot of research, spent a lot of time talking to other men,
Mm-hmm.
putting myself in situations where I could, just learn and listen and see what worked, what didn't work. And, so it's a constantly evolving process for me.
So one of the things that I heard, you didn't say this, but one of the things that I heard was that you said you were humble enough to go and listen and learn from others. And I think that is very important for any parent, whether it is mom, dad, guardian like grandparents, anyone who's dealing with a child. I think is very important that people realize it's not all about you. So as individuals, we have to continue to grow. And if we are in a certain role, like you're in the role of a father, that's one of your many roles. So, you were willing to go and basically be mentored, even whether it was observation, indirectly or directly, you were willing to do that so that you could be a better
Right.
person for your child. And I think that's very important because a lot of times people think they have like one or two kids and they're like, you can't tell me anything. Your child is no different than mine or no better than mine. And they just go on and on and on. So it's not about
Right.
attacking a parenting style. It's about you becoming a better person so you can become a better parent for your child. So let me ask you this, because co-parenting can be very difficult for a number of people. Last month I had individuals on, I had one particular person on talking about unhealthy relationships and what happens when people decide that they want to separate or get divorced, whatever the case may be. Since you've gone through this, what are your recommendations for making a transition easier for the children when the parents are deciding to separate or divorce?
Communication is going to be the best thing, and honesty.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when we communicate, we're afraid to communicate because we're afraid of sharing something that's going to be hurtful or painful. And it may change the way we want to either say the message or
Mm-hmm.
how we handle things. And one of the things I experience this myself, and I hear it a lot, is people say we don't want to hurt our children, we don't want to cause them pain, so they kind of delay
Mm-hmm.
communication or leave out certain facts and information, and that just prolongs the adjustment for the child.
Right. Right.
We have to have courageous conversations. We have to have those tough conversations with our kids. And while they may be tough right in that moment, we're also teaching our kids to be honest, to be forthcoming, to be, truth tellers. And, it's sort of a golden opportunity. You get this one shot to really show your kids how to handle life in the tough situations, and you just want to take advantage of it. It's not easy at all. It's very hard. But to me, that's the best way to handle it.
Right. And I think in some instances, too, children, children know when the parents are having when their parents are having difficulty. Not all of the time, but I can safely say like about 90% of the time. Like if you're sleeping in separate rooms and it doesn't have anything to do with somebody else snoring, kids pretty much know that.
Right.
I've even heard young
Absolutely.
people say, "Look, I wish they would just tell me what's going on, or either they just get divorced." Because not only are they sleeping in separate rooms, but they're also not communicating. And they try to avoid each other at all costs. So, children in many instances already know what's going on. So your daughter, you have a daughter. She seems well adjusted, or you have one of the daughters you're taking care of the younger one. So my question to you is this: how is the discipline handled since you're co-parenting?
Typically, right now it's handled separately. Her mom has her, I guess her rules, the way she handles things. I have my rules, the way I handle things. I think I'm fortunate in the sense that my daughter is very open in terms of communication with me. So if we have a conversation about something in a disciplinary fashion, what I say is respected by her. And I don't really have an issue with, discipline transitioning from house to house.
Okay.
I've been, in situations where I've talked with individuals where, because I've done some mentoring, and typically what I always recommend is that, again, communication is going to be key. If you have a grievance with the child, if I have a question about a behavior or disciplinary thing, I'll just mention it to her mom and say, hey, is this a thing? What's going on? Right. I need to know so I know how to set the proper expectations when she's with me. Like I said, that hasn't been an issue, but that's typically how, I would like to handle it.
So
just try to be honest.
What do you recommend for it? Because I've seen this with parents when they're basically using the child in a tug of war, or the children in a tug of war. They might go over, mom, I'm just using mom for example. Mom may say, okay, you know what, you're not going to have a cell phone for the next month or whatever. I'm going to take, or you're going to be on restrict. I'm going to make sure it's restricted. However you do that, and then they go to dad's house, and mom has told dad, she can't use her phone, while she's with you this weekend or for the week or whatever the case may be, and dad goes ahead and allows her to use her cell phone just because he doesn't see what the big deal is. And or he's just upset with, the mom and the dad are so upset with each other, they just do things to kind of spite one another. What would be your recommendation in situations like that? Even though you haven't experienced that, what would be your recommendation?
The recommendation I'll have is to just, you're going to have to stick to your guns. If dad is spiting mom and giving her the cell phone and, mom has to just, stick to her guns. And I say that because it comes to another core component of parenting, and that's boundaries. We want our kids to respect us. I want my daughter to know that I respect her, and that can only happen when boundaries are in place. And boundaries are not bad. They're designed to protect us, right? So, if we don't maintain those boundaries, it'll have long-standing effects on the relationship, even beyond, just the childhood or the rearing of the child. It can really damage a relationship in a long-term capacity.
Okay. All right, so everyone, we've been listening to Mr. Tony Groves. He's been talking to us about fatherhood. We will be right back after this commercial break where Mr. Groves will continue to bless us with his knowledge.
Must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine. That's your way. You always walked a step behind. See, I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. Yes, you were only a face without a name. I never once heard you complain. No. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I would like to be. I could fly higher than an eagle. Yeah, yeah. 'Cause you are the wind beneath my wings. appear to go unnoticed. But Daddy, 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 I've got it all right here in my heart. Yes, I said, and I know you don't know. I know the truth. I know you know the truth about it. I know you know the truth now. I would be nothing, nothing without you. Did you ever know you're my hero? Yeah, yeah. You're everything I would like to be. You're a part of me. You're a part of me. I could fly higher than an eagle. Oh, 'cause you are the wind beneath the old man's wing. One more time, yeah. You are the wind beneath my wing.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Wellness Enclave. Today we are celebrating fathers. I have a friend on the phone, Mr. Tony Groves, and he is discussing fatherhood from his perspective with us today. So, again, thank you, Tony, for calling in. It is very much appreciated. So, Mr. Groves, I have another question for you.
All right.
Are you ready? You ready?
I am.
Don't get quiet now. Okay. Wait. Okay. Okay. Are there any misconceptions about single parents and single fathers specifically? Do you find that there are any misconceptions?
Yeah, I think a lot of times there's a misconception that one parent is the superior parent. Mm-hmm. And in some cases that is true.
Okay.
But not always. And that can go both ways. That can be in the perspective that the mother is better than the father, or the father is better than the mother. And that's not always true. That's a big, misconception.
Are there what type of support is out there for single fathers? Like, are there? Like, I know a lot of times with churches, they have, like, single mothers. It's not even single parents. It's like we have a single mothers group for those of you who are struggling. Mothers raising sons and blah, blah, blah.
One thing that churches are doing now that's really, really nice, and that's the small group model.
Okay.
You go to church, and they have these groups that are what they call affinity-based. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're single mothers. Maybe they're single fathers. Maybe it's empty nesters. Maybe it's families. Maybe it's just an all men's group, an all women's group. So you could go and find, an affinity for the type of group that you want. And you don't have to stay in a group once you join. You can join, spend a few weeks in that group, and then maybe pick another affinity. So it allows you to kind of get the type of support that you need for whatever stage in life or challenge that you may be facing. So those are really good outlets.
Let me ask you this, and we've kind of talked about this before. Since you have your daughter quite a bit, are there some topics that you may leave to the mother, or do you tackle all issues?
I tackle everything.
Okay.
It's not easy. Sometimes it's scary because you never know what you're gonna get. But from the perspective of being a father, kind of tying back to that first question that you did ask of me was, what does it mean? What does being a father mean to me? Right. And allowing her to come to me with whatever she wants to talk about falls into that category of nurture, guiding, and teaching. Even if it's maybe an uncomfortable conversation, I want her to know that she can come to me with whatever she wants to bring to me.
So for topics like how should I apply my makeup, what color shoes, if young ladies were still wearing stockings, what color shoes, how do I know what color shoes to put on? What are those things that you consult with the mom on, or you educate yourself on that and you try to, hey, I got it, or doesn't even have to be the mom, grandmother, female friend, just whatever. So
I rely on other people, and
Okay.
luckily, makeup is a big thing for her now.
Mhm.
So, if she wants to know about that, I don't know about it, but I'll take her to maybe like a Ulta or Sephora or something, and
Right.
maybe buy her a session
Mhm.
so that
Mhm.
she can experience that and learn in that way. So I try to
Right.
rely on what's out there
Right.
to kind of facilitate those things. So I have to get creative.
Right. So we have about 3 or 4 more minutes. One of the questions I want to ask
Okay.
you about is I do want to ask you about self-care, but before we get to that, within a quick minute, what do you recommend when parents are separated or divorced and they want to start back to dating? Like what do you think is the best way to approach that, especially if it's somebody that you're considering getting serious about and there's a child involved?
I think again, communication is open and honest. You want to talk to your kid about what you're doing. If you're just want to date and you're not looking to be serious with someone, you want to keep that separate from your kid, because that can be confusing to a child.
Right.
And if you are serious with someone, you want to have that conversation with your child, with the person that you're serious with, and break it up in stages. You don't want to overwhelm your kid too quick. I'm not saying you should put your life on hold, but you want to kind of find that happy medium so that your kid doesn't feel like, hey, you're abandoning them, or
Right.
maybe life is transitioning too fast. Like I said, that can just be confusing and upsetting. So you want to always communicate and try to have a plan, to start, a new family, so to speak.
So tell me this, what are your overall stressors, and then how do you take care of yourself? Because just like anybody else, you're working, you may be dealing with parents as they're getting older. I don't know, that may be something you may be dealing with in addition to co-parenting, working, and other responsibilities, even responsibilities that you may or may not have in the church. So how do you balance those things? How do you take care of yourself?
Well, probably one of the biggest stressors is time. Everything takes time. Time is finite, and that is always a crunch for time. I have things I want to do. She has things she wants to do. There's work, there's school. So just being very intentional, very deliberate with what I do for myself, trying to make the most out of each day, and then in making the most out of each day, I'm able to kind of implement, self-care. That is really, really important. You have to take time to replenish physically, emotionally, psychologically. Let your kids go do things so that you can get a break. They need a break from us too. So
Absolutely.
that's really, really important. So put them in situations where they can get away from you, and then you guys can come back together and, replenish and enjoy each other.
Right. Okay, and I think that is great advice, because I tell people all of the time, when you're stressed out, then you stress other people out around you, because you're not your best self, and that stress manifests in agitation, irritation, impatience, and a whole bunch of other things. So I think that is...
Yeah, it just boils over into
I think that is
some unhealthy ways.
excellent advice. So, everyone, you have been listening to Mr. Tony Groves. We are celebrating fathers. For those of you who may not have a biological father that's as great as Mr. Groves, if you have uncles, grandfathers, friends, anybody who's willing to help you, who's genuine in assisting you, and who plays that role for you and is that role model for you, then you know what? If you're one of those people, I'm celebrating you. If you know someone that's like that and you're looking for someone like that, then my recommendation is to allow that person to mentor you. So thank you, Mr. Groves, again for calling in. this morning, and you have been listening to the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell, where emotional health and wellness is our top priority. And as always, have a fantastic day and a happy and healthy week.
This has been the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell. Join us each Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. on WWWE The Real 1100 AM. We look forward to growing with you.